Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of the Career Advice You Never Had podcast, where I provide you the career advice, education and support you missed out on in your career journey. I'm your host Angela, and today we will be exploring spacecrafting with Angela. No, not me, my guest. You may be wondering, what is spacecrafting? Stick around to find out more as Angela shares her story that went viral and how she ended up working in a space center. I'd love for you to notice the resonance of her journey and lean into what feels familiar, what may inspire action, and helps you understand your current situation from a different perspective. I really appreciate you listening today, and I really love hearing your stories, takeaways from the podcast, and all the different episodes, so keep them coming. Let's get into it. Hello, Angela, and welcome to the Career Advice You Never Had podcast. You're coming all the way from the UK, and I'm so glad to have you here. And you're going to tell a little bit about your transition story and what you're doing. And I'm really excited to share your story with the world. So thank you for joining me, Angela.
Hi, Angela. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I do like sharing the story in the hope it'll inspire other females to get out there and fulfill their potential.
Yes, it sounds great. And we've got such a great story to unpack in here. And you're my first international guest, that it's morning for you, night for me. And maybe we can begin with telling the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you currently do. Is it okay to start there?
Sure, yeah. My name's Angela Ashill, and I'm currently the manufacturing process manager for the MLI facility at RAL Space in Oxfordshire. Basically, what we do there is, I always describe it as the shiny bits. When you look at a satellite and you see the shiny bits, that we make the shiny bits. So what the shiny bits are is, it's a bit like a coat for a satellite. When you're really cold in the winter and you put a coat on to keep you warm, and then in the summer you get really hot, so you take your coat off. And basically what you're trying to do is keep your body temperature, keep you at a comfortable temperature so that everything works to its best. And basically that's what the shiny bits do on satellites. The MLI is multi-layer insulation, and what it is, it's layers of aluminium foil separated by layers of very thin netting, and basically we make the blankets, which are all bespoke for different parts of the hardware. So as you would make a suit for somebody that was really large, different to a suit that was for somebody that was really small, longer sleeves, it's a bit like that. All different parts of the satellite are covered, unless it's specifically not needed to be covered, as in a camera or something. It's bespoke, and it's really interesting.
It sounds really interesting. I've never heard of jackets for satellites and blankets. What drew you to this particular area of work? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you say you'd never thought about coats for satellite. So a few years ago, many moons ago, so about 7 years ago, I'd been crafting. I'd been a crafter. I started life as a radiographer, then had my family, and didn't want to go back to radiography because I didn't want to do the shift patterns. So I sort of dabbled in making cards and things like that. And people would say, "Oh, can you make me one for this? Can you make me one for this birthday?" And slowly, sort of, probably because I was bored, it sort of evolved into a craft business. And then I did that for about 10 years. But basically, it was in my kitchen, and the house was becoming overrun with, I call it objet d'art. My husband calls it bric-a-brac, tit-tat. He calls it. After about 10 years, I sort of thought, I'm a social person, so I need an occupation that will let me interact with people, that will be sort of 9 to 5, no weekends. But what do I do? I really was sort of at a loss as to where I could go. What skills did I have? Would anybody want to employ me? I knew I didn't want to go back to radiography. So I had the skills as a radiographer. I had skills where I was quite nimble-fingered, quite dexterous, and I had a certain amount of organisational skills. So, yeah, I'm sat sort of at my kitchen table making things. I just flicked onto Facebook, actually, the local Facebook page, and saw an advert for somebody for making blankets for satellites. And as you said, why on earth would satellites want blankets? So when I think of a blanket, I think of something that's either knitted or a duvet or something like that. So I had visions of this job being sort of sat there knitting or something. And so I sort of did the woman thing of, I'll tick that box, I tick that box, I tick that box, but I don't tick that, I don't tick that, I don't tick that. So can I apply? And I just thought, oh, sod it. I'll apply. So I applied, and I think I applied actually about 2 minutes to the cut-off date. And I got an interview, and I got the job. And that was, like I said, that was just over 7 years ago. So now I've gone from being a part-time sort of newbie, in inverted commas, to managing the manufacturing production side of things. So it's certainly not somewhere I would have said 7 years ago that I would be, but what a ride it's been.
Yeah, I just have the words wow popping into my mind, that you're on Facebook, you came across this, you were questioning things, how can I use my skills? And that you came across this, and 2 minutes before it cut off, you applied. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that as women, we look at job descriptions and we go, yes, oh no, I can't do that. And that most people then don't apply. Mm-hmm. You did. Yeah. There's that sort of sliding doors moment. What is it that got you to just apply?
So I think I'm sort of a person who will say, I find it very difficult to say no. So when people say, oh, do you want to do something? I'll say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And then it comes up to it. And oh my God, what did I say that for? I think it's a combination of things. I think it was partly the fact that why not? There was nothing else. I had nothing to lose. It was partly possibly an age thing. I don't know whether my younger self would have gone for it, or whether my younger self would have thought, oh no, I don't tick enough of the boxes. My older self just thought, oh, give it a go. And I think it was just sort of a confluence of, everything coming together that just thought, oh, I'll try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And, it's as much as do they like me as do I like them. And I think the fact that it's literally 5 minutes, 10 minutes cycle ride away. And so it wasn't like a lot of effort, I suppose, really, being realistic. So just give it a go and see what comes of it. I was actually thinking this morning as well about imposter syndrome. It was quite strange because I think somebody talking to me would think that I would have imposter syndrome working where I work now, because I was basically somebody that was, a crafter, in inverted commas. And they're all sorts of scientists and, physicists, astrophysicists and all sorts of things. And going into that environment, you might think that I would think like, oh dear, I don't belong. Am I worthy? But it wasn't in that context that I was thinking about imposter syndrome. What I was thinking about was, as a crafter, I see all these people that make beautiful things, sort of like beautiful jewellery, beautiful furniture, beautiful things in clay. And I think I sort of felt that, okay, I was creating these things, but to me, it was a hobby. It was a hobby that took on, more of a business thing. And that was where the imposter syndrome thought was coming from, which I thought was quite, just sort of thought is quite interesting to think about, really.
Yes, and that's a big thing, that when we are looking at moving industries or trying something new, we do have things like fear, imposter syndrome, outdated beliefs and old memories that pop in as we try and step out of our comfort zone. You mentioned the transferable skills that you brought from crafting that helped you in the job that you're in at the moment. And I wanted to get a bit of an idea about what was it like onboarding and in the Space Centre and walking in there without imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so I think my crafting had got to the stage where it was like a business. And so I was sort of doing the books and, organising, buying stuff in, doing all the bits and bobs. And also I was a housewife, so I'd run, a house and everything. So I think a lot of, let's say, older women think that they haven't got any transferable skills or whatever. In fact, they've got a huge amount of transferable skills, organisation, logistics, everything. I sort of went in with that, but I'd applied for it thinking, I'll have a go. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So although when I was doing the crafting, people would be making jewellery and beautiful furniture and things like that. And I was basically cobbling stuff together at the kitchen table, anything that came into my head. That I felt sort of I wasn't qualified to be a crafter, whereas I had these transferable skills. They were looking for somebody that was a crafter. They advertised for an engineer, but didn't get any takers. And so I think I sort of thought, I went in thinking that they need me. They need my skills. Everybody was, it's a bit like, when JFK went into NASA and said to the cleaner, oh, what are you doing? And he said, I'm helping put the man on the moon. It was a bit like that, because without everybody's input, nothing happens. And it's very much a team, like a team sport, if you like. The only thing I wasn't confident with was the computer. Like on the job advert, it sort of said, like, you've got Microsoft Office, then, that's fine. Well, I'd done the job advert, I'd filled the application form in, I'd done my CV. I could do a spreadsheet, because I had a spreadsheet for my crazy cow creation thing, but it was only one page. So I went in there, so, I can do this, I can do that. And then when I was in there actually doing the job, and it's like, oh, can you do this? I'm thinking, oh my God, no, I can't. And it's sort of like, that was a real sort of palpitation moment. However, my boss sort of said to me, I think he could see that I was frightened to sort of like press the button in case I sort of deleted anything to wipe the whole building out or something, which is what I thought I was going to do. He said, we've got an IT department at the end of the corridor. So if you do anything wrong, they can retrieve anything you delete by accident or whatever. And I think that sort of gave me the confidence to think, actually, I can. Nobody's born knowing how to use computers. If you can drive, you can learn how to drive, you can learn how to use a computer. It's basically press this button, press that button. I think with that, my confidence grew in that area. And then the blankets were just a joy to make, because it was my, taking my crafting skills and eye for detail and, manual dexterity and everything. And it just flew after that. Up at work at RAL Space, nobody ever makes you feel stupid for asking a question. And I think that rather you ask a question than, we always say, measure twice, cut once, that sort of thing. So they're quite open to asking questions. It started off as a research place, so I think they're used to people asking questions, and they actually quite like people asking questions. So there were so many things to learn. The transferable skills, it's not knitting. no knitting involved. And there isn't actually a lot of sewing involved. It's more, we use sort of like special high temperature tapes. So it's sort of eye for detail, being accurate and that sort of thing. And where I am now, it's obviously doing the management side. It's more using organisational skills, that sort of thing. But I always think, like, project manager is basically probably get slated for this, but it's basically a housewife. If you can run a house with children, then you can run a multi-million-dollar company, I think.
Yes. Yeah, those management skills that we learn as a parent. Yeah. And I'm almost trying to picture what that transition was like for you to go from your crafting business to the role that you're in now. And sometimes transitions can be quick, easy, lengthy, stressful. You mentioned about the IT skills. Sounds like that was the hardest for you. How would you describe the transition you went through from saying goodbye to crafting to where you are now?
Well, I think when I applied for the job, I wanted something that was more structured so that my house wouldn't be cluttered with crafting equipment and everything. I'd got the bit where I'd got the job that was more structured and a regular paycheck and all that business. But I was also giving up something that I actually really enjoyed doing. But I'm sort of, if I can't give 110%, then I don't want to do it, sort of thing. So when I got the job up at RAL Space, first of all, it was such a vertical learning curve that I really didn't have the headspace to do anything else. But also, I thought, no, I want to now break away from doing the crafts. And so, I gave a lot of stuff, I sold some stuff, I gave a lot of stuff to a local hospice so that they could sell it for their funds. I gave a lot of the raw materials to people that wanted them. And it got to the stage where I didn't have a lot, well, I had hardly anything left. So that was, I'd say, probably about 3 or 4 years in. Like I say, I started part-time up at RAL Space. And what I found was that what was meant to be this little job that got me out of the house, 9 to 5, gave me some sort of structure. Because then home became home rather than it being the factory as well. I did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning. Get to Friday lunchtime, and I'd be thinking, I don't want to go home. I want to finish what I'm doing. So I'd stay for a bit longer, and then I'd come home. And then when I went back in on the Tuesday, things had moved on, and it was that sort of, oh right, so I've missed that, and I've missed that, and I've missed that, just because I've been out Friday afternoon and Monday. And I thought, I don't like this. I don't like missing I don't like missing things and not being able to finish what I've started. Somebody else is finishing it before me because I'm not there. And so that was when I went full time. And I would say that there's probably 98% of the job that I know, but there are always new things coming up. I mean, I like to learn something every day, something new every day, whether it's how to cook something or, what a plant's called or whether it be something at work. So I don't think I've reached a stage yet where I'm never learning anything. And I think probably time to leave when I do. I can't really see that time ever coming. But my house has now turned back into the factory. The making bug lay dormant for a while. And then I think last year I did a couple of craft fairs. I had enough stock to do a couple of craft fairs and got the bug back. So now I have sort of almost 2 jobs. But the house has become overrun again a little bit, I think. I think I enjoy being busy, and that's, at the end of the day, that's cut of it, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you are someone who's practical. You might like doing creative things, stimulating your brain, so learning something new. And it's so important that we just keep learning, that it is that lifelong learning. What's also coming to mind for me is how we got connected, which is through the power of LinkedIn, that it was an article that connection of mine shared about your story that I went, oh, this is so interesting. I'm going to read this and watch the video connected with that you mentioned went viral. So tell me a little bit about this viral video of yours. You're on the chase and where that direction that it's spun you in now. And tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, for people that don't know, The Chase is a sort of a quiz show that's on every night with a sort of bloke called Bradley Walsh, who is a comedian, and he does this show, and he's really very good, and he sort of he is very good, yeah. And The Chase is, of all the quiz shows, it's the one that you get, I suppose, most questions for your money. To me, it's the best quiz show. So I like general knowledge, and some people said, oh, you should go on The Chase, Oh, yeah. One night probably about 3 years ago now, I was with my sister. We'd had a little bit of wine and, maybe 1 or 2 glasses too much. And we were watching The Chase on catch up. I'd be really laughing at it if, we applied. Yeah, go on, do it. So I did. And a few months after that, I was actually in Scotland with my sister and some other relatives. And I got the phone call on my mobile and it was The Chase. And so, cut long story short, I actually then appeared on The Chase. It was broadcast this year in January. It was actually recorded the January previously. So I didn't tell anybody. I told the 2 people in my office, because obviously I booked the day off. Oh, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm going down to London to record this. Really? So they knew, and obviously my sister knew and a few relatives, but nobody else at work knew. And so it was broadcast, and the day after, people laughing at me and saying, yeah, it just sort of caused a big laugh, really. But then people, I think an organisation called Heritage Crafts got hold of it. They posted it, and I think it got 3.1 million views or something. Then our comms team got hold of it. Then I got asked to go on the local radio. And yeah, it just sort of went a bit bonkers from there, really. Because of the story of work, it was like I'd explain something that I do in words that people could understand. So they were sort of like quite happy about that. And then from the other side, it was like there's this older woman has sort of, gone from crafting to making these. And it was just sort of, I don't know, for some reason, it seemed to spark something in a lot of places. So yeah, it's gone a bit off at a tangent, really. My media career parallel now to my crafting career, which is running in parallel to my actual job that pay the money.
It's another one of those moments where you thought, why not? Let's apply to The Chase. And then it's led you on this other tangent that you've got now these parallel things happening all together. And it seems like there's a bit of a theme coming out of you just doing it. And what's the worst if I apply? And
no, you say that. I hadn't thought of that, actually. But yeah, you're right there. Yeah, and it's so good to hear, and that there is a program that I was reading about through LinkedIn again of an advocate that you're going to be a part of, and that organisation sounds really interesting. Would you like to share a little bit about that? Sure, yeah. It's a social enterprise initiative run by 2 ladies. one of whom contacted me and said, we've got this program running for, in the UK especially, I'm not quite sure about anywhere else, but the UK has got this problem at the minute with, after COVID, a lot of people left the workforce for various reasons and didn't go back. And so now we've got sort of like a gap in the workforce which needs filling. And the Midlife 360 identified actually there's a lot of women of, mid-age onwards that have got loads of skills that they don't actually realise, skills that employers want / need. And it's sort of like, let's get these women to appreciate what skills they've got and get them to apply for these jobs, and it will benefit them and it will benefit the economy as a whole. And so, I was in contact with Sally, and we did sort of an interview thing, and she asked if I would like to be an advocate for Midlife 360, which involves sort of maybe doing a webcast or something with them, or speaking to women in a similar situation to me 7 years ago. And I just think it's great. I think there are too many women that go through that, I can't do that. I can't do that. Yes, you can do that. You can. You are able to do that. Don't think you can't. I mean, my mum used to say, there's no such word as can't. Well, actually, there is, but a lot of people say, don't use it as an excuse, first of all, not to get out there and do it. Just take the risk and just go and do it. And it might be the best thing you've ever done. Conversely, you might hate it, but you don't know that until you try. A bit like cheesecake.
Thank you for sharing that. That's just so powerful to hear that there's programs like that coming out of the pandemic. They can see that there's a gap, and that there is also, on the other end, so many people that can fill it, that may just need that little boost in confidence, that may need a mentor or support person to nudge them just that little bit forward and have that discussion about, you have these transferable skills. They can be used in other areas to open their eyes to other possibilities. And it's about that support. So it sounds like you're now going to help people maybe where you were 7 years ago, which brings us to the last little part of the whole topic of my podcast around the advice that you may have been given during your lifetime. It sounds like you mentioned about your mum and the word can't. Is there any career advice that you've been given along your journey that has been helpful or not helpful? What was your experience with career advice?
So, career advice, I would say, has been utterly useless. Sorry. So I'm going back a long time now. I'm going back to when I was 16, and we were just doing our what are now GCSEs, then what O-levels. And I think you got one careers session. So I went in and I said to this bloke, I said, I want to be a lawyer. And he sat there, and he wasn't an old bloke. He was a young bloke. And he sort of sat there and he went, oh, difficult for women, difficult. Right. Now, I'm an impressionable 16-year-old girl. And I'm thinking, like, well, if this careers advisor is telling me that, then I can't do that then. And that is a big regret of my life, that I actually listened to him. But then I went to sixth form, and I had my second interview, careers interview. At this point, I'd forgotten about being a lawyer now, because I couldn't do that because I was a woman. I went in and he said, so Angela, I said, what do you want to do? Well, I don't really know. I said, I really want to do something in a hospital. I want to do something in a hospital, be that doctor, whatever. Have you got any hobbies? Now, the Lord only knows why I said cooking, because my husband will know that is not something that I consider as a hobby. But I said, cooking. So this careers advisor, who presumably had been trained in careers advice, said to me, have you ever thought of working in a hospital kitchen? Well, that's not rocket science either, is it? They are the two bits of absolute rubbish careers advice that I was given. I did end up working in a hospital as a radiographer. So that was technical. It's machinery, and there's the care aspect, interaction with people sometimes at their lowest. And I probably would have stayed doing that had we not moved. So sorry, I didn't say that, did I? I was in Manchester doing that. And then we now live in Oxfordshire. We moved down with my husband's job. This is another one of life's winding paths that I now live in Oxfordshire, which I would never have said I would have ended up doing. And here we are.
Yeah, so important that if we have advice that's maybe not as helpful, that you still listen to your head, your heart, your gut, is that a part of the advice you would give to your 16-year-old self that didn't become the lawyer, that wasn't interested in working in the kitchen of a hospital? What advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
I think that what I would tell my 16-year-old self was to do actually what I thought I wanted to do and not listen to people who I thought knew more than I did. I wanted to be a lawyer. I think I would have really enjoyed that. However, if I had gone down that route, I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And so it's really weird the way that life, it's sort of like snakes and ladders in a way, you know. It's not a straight path for most people, I would think. Sometimes you've got to find your own path. And sometimes you'll find yourself at a place where actually you don't want to be, but there's no shame, and it's not a waste of time just to turn around and walk down that path and then try a different one. Give it a go. If it doesn't work out, you've had the guts to try, and you deserve a pat on the back for that. Because somebody tells you you can't, and especially if they tell you can't because you're a woman, because you're too short, because you're too fat, no, you can. Don't listen to them. You give it a try. If you want to do it, then you try. And so what if you fail? You're too long dead.
Yeah. And thank you so much. That this has been a really amazing chat, that I'm glad that we got to learn about the role that you do and making the blankets for the satellites to keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And it's opened my eyes to all the possibilities and reminding everyone to take that leap and to go down the path that feels right. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, Angela, and joining us here on the podcast. Is there any parting words you'd like to leave the listeners, or any last thoughts?
No, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and just go for it. Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. I love that. Thank you. After listening to Angela's story, what is one thing that you'll take away? You'll find Angela's details in the show notes below, and make sure you check out that viral video as well as articles that she's been in. In future episodes, we'll be exploring recruitment insights and more career stories. And remember, the sky's the limit. There may be people who haven't had the career advice they've needed along their journey, and I'm here to provide it. Thank you again for listening and for sharing this with someone who's looking for career inspiration. And together, we'll navigate this journey as you find your way, rediscover yourself, and focus on taking the next meaningful step in your career.